The morning of October 23rd started like any other. Julian's wife, Eleanor, remembered him kissing her goodbye with his briefcase in hand, telling her about an early meeting with a demanding client. He got to his boutique at 8 a.m., deactivating the first layer of security, just like he always did. An hour later, his longtime business partner and friend, Marcus Thorne, arrived to find a scene of controlled chaos. The main vault was secure, but the door to the private viewing room was left open. Inside, a high-tech display case, built to withstand a sledgehammer, was shattered. Trays that once held a collection of rare-colored diamonds were empty. Marcus called the police immediately, his voice trembling as he reported a robbery and his friend's abduction. When investigators arrived, the scene told a clear but brutal story. This was a professional job. The thieves knew the security, bypassing the initial alarms and striking before the street got busy. The target was specific: a set of flawless, untraceable diamonds worth an estimated $10 million. Right away, everyone landed on the same theory. This was a high-stakes robbery that had gone sideways. Julian Dubois, known for being stubborn and protective of his inventory, probably resisted, and the criminals took him to demand a ransom. The city held its breath, and the nation watched, praying for the safe return of a man everyone felt they knew. He wasn't just a jeweler. He was a civic institution, a pillar of society whose reputation seemed as flawless and unbreakable as the stones he sold. For over 3 decades, Dubois Diamonds was the most trusted name in the capital, a byword for integrity in a world often defined by its absence. His boutique was a fortress of polished marble and bulletproof glass, strategically positioned on the city's most luxurious street. It wasn't merely a store, it was a sanctuary for the elite. Its facade of gleaming brass and dark green granite was both an invitation and a statement of untouchable prestige. This was where the city's old money and its new, powerful titans came for everything from engagement rings destined for royal fingers to investment-grade stones that represented entire fortunes, condensed into a single, perfect object. To be a client of Dubois was to have arrived. Julian, in his late 50s, was the very embodiment of quiet, unassailable success. He was a devoted husband to his wife, Eleanor, a graceful woman who was a respected philanthropist in her own right, and a loving father to 2 university-age children, a son and a daughter, who were on their way to respectable careers in law and medicine. He was a man of routine and quiet dignity. Neighbors would see him on his morning walks, always impeccably dressed, offering a polite nod and a gentle smile. His reputation for discreet philanthropy was well-earned. He anonymously funded scholarships, supported arts programs, and contributed to hospital wings, never seeking credit, reinforcing the image of a man content in his own prosperity and dedicated to the public good. Professionally, he was a legend. He was known for his steady hands, capable of handling the most delicate and priceless artifacts without a tremor. He possessed a discerning eye, an almost supernatural ability to spot the subtlest flaw or the most profound brilliance in a stone. But his true gift, the one that built his empire, was his uncanny talent for matching a person with their perfect gem. He would sit with clients in his private, soundproofed viewing room, a space of soft leather and dark wood, and he would listen. He wouldn't just hear what they wanted, he would intuit what they needed. He spoke of diamonds not as merchandise, but as legacies, as tangible pieces of history that would outlive them all. He'd hold a stone to the light and speak of its journey from the depths of the earth, through the hands of master cutters, to this very room. He sold not just jewelry but stories. He projected an aura of old-world integrity, a calm and reassuring presence in a world of frantic excess and fleeting trends. His clients, therefore, weren't just customers. They were his confidants. They were captains of industry, powerful politicians, foreign dignitaries, and celebrities whose private lives were public fodder. Within the sanctum of his boutique, they could let their guard down. They entrusted him not only with their fortunes but with their secrets. They spoke of impending divorces that necessitated the quiet liquidation of assets, of clandestine affairs that required a special, untraceable gift, of financial windfalls from questionable sources that needed to be legitimized through the purchase of a hard asset. Julian listened to it all with the placid, non-judgmental air of a confessor, his discretion as legendary as his expertise. They never for a moment doubted the man whose name was synonymous with quality, class, and above all, silence. By all public accounts, he was unimpeachable, a man whose life was as clear and brilliant as the diamonds he sold. And that is precisely, exactly what made his vanishing so utterly terrifying, because it suggested that this flawless facade was, in fact, the most valuable thing he had ever crafted. As Marcus walked further into the showroom, the main vault, a colossal stainless steel edifice visible at the rear of the store, was untouched, its massive door securely locked. But to its left, the thick, soundproof door to the private viewing room, the inner sanctum where Julian conducted his most exclusive business, hung slightly open. A sliver of darkness broke the pristine white of the hallway wall. Marcus's heart began to hammer against his ribs. He pushed the door open. Inside, he was met with a scene of chilling disarray that was both violent and strangely sterile. A state-of-the-art display case, a custom-built marvel of engineering with reinforced polymer glass designed to withstand a sledgehammer, was shattered. A single, focused point of impact had created a starburst fracture, and a large section of the glass had been removed. It was a professional, targeted breach, not mindless vandalism. Velvet trays, which Marcus knew had, just the evening before, held a breathtaking collection of rare-colored diamonds, pinks, blues, and yellows sourced for the demanding industrialist, were empty. They were scattered on the floor, their plush surfaces a stark black against the pale cream carpet. There was no other damage. No other cases were touched. Nothing else in the room was out of place. And Julian was gone. His briefcase was on the floor near his desk, his coffee untouched. Marcus's hands trembled uncontrollably as he fumbled for his phone and dialed the police, his voice cracking as he reported a high-value robbery and his friend's abduction. When investigators arrived, the scene seemed to tell a straightforward, if brutal, story. This was not the work of smash-and-grab thugs. This was the work of absolute professionals. The perpetrators knew the security protocols intimately. They knew about the 1-hour window between the deactivation of the preliminary external alarm and the automatic activation of the comprehensive internal system at 9 a.m. They struck in that brief, vulnerable period before the street filled with morning traffic and witnesses. The target was surgically specific. A set of flawless, largely untraceable colored diamonds with a collective valuation of roughly $10 million. They were unregistered on international databases, making them nearly impossible to track once fenced. The lead detective on the scene, a seasoned but weary cop named Frank Miller, immediately formulated a working theory that the media would soon echo across the country. It was a high-stakes robbery that had gone wrong. Julian Dubois, a man known for being fiercely protective of his inventory and his clients, must have been present during the intrusion. Perhaps he arrived earlier than the thieves anticipated, or perhaps they were waiting for him. He must have resisted. Knowing he could identify them, the criminals abducted him. Their plan would be to force a ransom from his wealthy family or to coerce him into revealing access codes for other, more secure assets. The city held its breath as the nation watched the news reports, the image of Julian's kind, familiar face plastered on every screen, praying for the safe return of a man everyone felt they knew and trusted. It was a clean, logical narrative. It was also completely wrong. The first 72 hours following Julian's disappearance were a frantic, desperate blur of organized chaos. The police, under immense public and political pressure, launched one of the largest and most expensive manhunts in the country's history. The operation was vast. Helicopters with infrared cameras thundered over the city, their searchlights cutting through the night sky. Tactical teams, acting on thin and often contradictory tips, executed a series of high-risk raids on the hideouts of known jewel thieves and armed robbery crews, each time coming up empty-handed. Uniformed officers and volunteer search and rescue teams formed long lines, combing through dense forests on the city's outskirts and dragging murky waterways, searching for any sign, any piece of discarded evidence. Every port, airport, and border crossing was on high alert, with Julian's face and description sent to every customs and immigration officer. The media descended on the story like vultures, transforming a local crime into a national obsession. His kind, bespectacled face was a constant presence on every screen, his name on every news anchor's lips. The narrative was compelling and simple. A good man, a pillar of the community, had been violently torn from his life by ruthless criminals. The public was captivated. At the center of this storm were Julian's family, broken and bewildered. They were thrust into a spotlight they had never sought, their private grief becoming a public spectacle. Eleanor, flanked by her two pale and shaken children, made a series of heartbreaking televised pleas for his return. In the first press conference held just a day after the abduction, she was a mask of aristocratic composure, reading a prepared statement. But by the third day, the facade had crumbled. Her face was gaunt, etched with exhaustion and sheer grief. She spoke directly to the camera and to the anonymous kidnappers she believed were watching. "I am speaking to the people who have my husband," she began, her voice trembling but clear. "There has been no contact. We don't know what you want. But I am telling you now, whatever it is, you can have it. Money, jewels, anything. These things mean nothing to us without him." She paused, her eyes filling with tears. "Julian is a good man. He is a husband and a father. He has a family that loves him more than anything in this world. Just let him come home," she pleaded, her voice finally shattering into a sob. "Take anything you want, but please, please don't hurt him." Public sympathy was immense and palpable. A sea of flowers, handwritten notes, and teddy bears grew outside the shuttered doors of the Dubois Diamonds boutique, a spontaneous shrine to a man the city felt it had lost. The entire nation seemed united in a single hope for his safe return. But behind the scenes, within the sterile walls of the investigation headquarters, a different emotion was taking root, profound, gnawing doubt. Detective Miller and his team worked around the clock, chasing down every lead, profiling every known jewel thief and organized crime syndicate with a history of violent heists. They cross-referenced known associates, monitored underworld chatter, and analyzed similar crimes from across the globe. Yet nothing fit. The professional crews they knew of were either already in prison or had ironclad alibis. More importantly, something crucial was missing. Days bled into a week, then 10 days, then 2 weeks. And the one thing everyone expected, the one thing that is the entire point of a kidnapping for ransom, never materialized. There was no phone call, no email, no note left in a public place. There was no demand for money. There was absolutely nothing. The silence from the supposed kidnappers was absolute, and it was far more terrifying than any threat. The tidy, straightforward theory of a kidnapping gone wrong began to fray, then to crumble completely. Professional robbers, no matter how violent, demand money. They make contact. They have a goal. These perpetrators had vanished as completely as Julian himself, leaving behind a $10 million hole in a jewelry case and a chilling, ever-expanding unanswered question. If this wasn't about the money, what in God's name was it about? The silence suggested this wasn't an abduction. It was a disposal.